Please, we are starting for the last section of in main room. Please, we are starting for the last section. I think they are all all of us are tired. Okay. Rita Desiderio and Carmine Verino joint up, please. Yes, dear Rita and Carmine are the younger chairman of the Congress. Ok. No, mettetevi qui. Ok, adesso facciamo vedere. Ok, va bene, perfetto. Allora vi chiamate voi le persone. Sì, sì, da qua se vuoi. Chiamate voi. Li chiamiamo. Date la prossima diapositiva, per favore. Ah, oh, brava. Non possiamo, allora, c'è tutto quanto con le cose? Ah, ok, sì.
Ma non c'è proprio il relatore. Allora, sicuramente loro ci sono. Sicuramente ci sono già loro qui, nel caso. Non so se qua c'è anche God. Invertiamo?
Okay, but I think there is a mistake about the time, in the timing. Okay, it's better. Okay, we started with the second speaker, and next with the first. Okay.
Is there Natalia Gladka? Okay. Now we introduce the next speakers. Neresia Osborne and Shiba Boake Dua. I'm sorry in advance for pronunciation. And Neresia Osborne comes from UK. She is practicing therapeutic coach and case manager specializing in working with women in maternal health, birth trauma, brain injury, and complex care needs and disability. A student embarking on research exploring Black maternal health, trauma, and medical legal experiences, developing the workshops to bring existential practice in low-cost and affiliated fields. Sheba Wachi Dua also comes from UK. She is a health educator, nutritionist, and doctoral candidate in existential psychotherapy and counseling at the New School of Psychotherapy and Counseling. She is a trainee existential therapist. Alongside her health and well-being work, she is a co-founder of a social enterprise, Urban Possibility Chic. CIC, where she facilitates culturally attuned well-being workshops in the UK, and is developing the same in Lesotho. Shiva's work aims to bridge existential therapeutic principles with community well-being, creating accessible mental health support that responds to local culture context. Their work titled The Psychosis of Existential Training Towards an Inclusive and Equitable Therapeutic Practice for Young Therapists.
Good afternoon or evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. It's a pleasure to be here also. So as mentioned, my name's Sheba, and I'm here with my colleague Narisia. And today we'll be talking about or examining existential psychotherapy and how the training continues to often marginalize Black voices. And we've chosen this intersection being Black females within existential training. Also with the hope that others from different intersections can also have the opportunity to come forward and talk about their experience so we can decenter one way of looking at existential psychotherapy and philosophy. So disruptions, sorry, bear with me. The clicker for the slides, I forgot about that. Oh, it's this. Thank you. Okay. Lovely. So I think we've introduced ourselves, so I won't labour that point. Right. So I'm really hoping that at least some of you know this wonderful gentleman, Lewis Gordon. So he's one of the kind of godfathers of Black existentialism. And we've used this quote or term that he spoke about called delusions of neutrality. So delusion occurs when one sets up a reality and forgets they did so. This is a quote from Gordon. And we use this quote because Eurocentric training constructs a closed circuit of legitimacy. It repeats itself and can often resist critique. And this often detaches us from the realities that it claims to serve, which is where we locate the term psychosis. Because this is when training becomes defensive and disconnected in the face of other worldviews such as ours, and therefore can cease to be really and truly existential. So again, our approach is both theoretical and personal. We draw from existential and Africana philosophy, but also a lived reality of being Black within a training institution that's predominantly white, so a PWI. The questions we ask are simple. If training ignores Blackness, can it still, again, call itself existential? So Audre Lorde reminds us of a quote that gave us the prompt or the bravery to come up here and talk about this in a Eurocentric space. She says that our silence will not protect us. So the canon of existential therapy is overwhelmingly Eurocentric. I think I've probably heard of one existentialist within this whole conference that wasn't Eurocentric, and that was Fanon, mentioned by Yaki a couple of days ago. And Black thought is often absent in spaces that talk about existentialism, and therefore often feels like an active marginalization of our voices. We often find that when we question this, we are seen as not insightful, but more so disruptive, or we feel that we're not seen as insightful, but more so disruptive. And this can often feel like a betrayal of existential values, as it feels like we're told we are the problem or the other for daring to speak. But true existentialism must welcome this challenge more as growth as we sit with this discomfort. So themes like freedom, death, isolation, and meaning are often discussed as abstract and decontextualized. But whose experiences are these based on? Therapy has to respond to lived injustice. Just as Sartre says, freedom is what you do with what has been done to you. But whose doing is it, and whose suffering is it, and is it visible in our training rooms? So blackness is often treated as pathological and a deviation to be managed, yet Africana thought offers a more profound existential insight. Just as Baldwin wrote, to be black and conscious is to be in a constant state of rage. That rage is not dysfunction, it is truth. And existential therapy, we encourage existential therapy to learn to sit with rage, not to fix it, but to understand and again sit with the discomfort of rage. So that's it from me. I'm going to hand over to Naricia for the second part of the presentation.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So just to continue from where Sheba left off, in terms of compliance to authenticity, so training too often rewards compliance and not authenticity. Africana philosophy must be treated not as an identity marker, but as a legitimate philosophy. As therapists, we must hold space for discomfort. Contradiction and complexities. Intersectionality should not be a module. It should be foundational. We are not asking to be included, we are insisting on epistemic justice. In terms of being culturally responsive and philosophically grounded, this is about epistemic justice, not just about cultural competence. So training must move beyond technical skills into a worldview. Reflective practice, journaling, supervision, these must be used to challenge internalized coloniality. We need therapists who can hold difference, not a challenge, but as a given. So let's consider a young black client navigating systemic racism in his community or workplace. A conventional existential approach might ask, what is his meaning? But a black existential lens asks, how has oppression Sorry. Oh, okay. Can you hear me now? Sorry, thank you. Let me start again. But a black existential lens asks, how has oppression shaped his experience of freedom? What does survival mean in his context? Our task is not just empathy, but epistemic justice. As Du Bois said, to will oneself free is also to will others free. So this isn't about bolting on Africana philosophy onto existing Eurocentric structures. It's about rebuilding. Reflective tools like case studies, role plays, journaling must be grounded in diverse ways of knowing. Inclusion is not transformation. What we are calling for is nothing less than a remaking of philosophical foundations. Existential therapy must embrace all of existence. This is a philosophical and ethical imperative. Audre Lorde wrote, "The master's tool will never dismantle the master's house, so we are building new ones." We invite you now to pause. Take a moment to sit with what you've heard. Let it settle. The work of transformation requires not just thought, but feeling and rest. this space is sacred. So we'll leave you with the words of Lucille Clifton. Come celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and failed. This line holds the weight and the grace of what it means to be black in training, in therapy, in life. Survival is an act of resistance. Speaking is an act of defense. Let this be our celebration and our collective invitation. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you for your intervention and for your insightful work. Is there any question for our speakers? Okay.
Sì, avete parlato, avete accennato al termine, all'espressione filosofia africana. Ci potete dare qualche chiarimento su questo termine, filosofia africana? Grazie.
Thank you. So in terms of Africana philosophy, we're looking at Africana existential philosophy as a way to include not only a Eurocentric approach, so include philosophers like were mentioned on the second to last slide. So there are existential philosophers that we look towards from ancient Eurocentric models, like Kierkegaard and Nietzsche. But within Africana existentialism, we also have philosophers that we can look towards. And that's what we meant by Africana existential philosophy. Maybe I should have grouped those two together.
E ci sono dei rappresentanti di questo tipo di pensiero, perché io stimo molto l'Africa e il suo pensiero, la sua civiltà, quindi ci sono anche delle persone che hanno coltivato questo tipo di filosofia, di pensiero, di cultura?
Yeah. I'm not sure if we're able to pull up the slides again. Yeah.
Vabbè, solo un cenno, perché ho visto anche dei...
Ah, yes.
Poi siete voi anche che penso porterete avanti questo pensiero, mi auguro, no? È giusto? Almeno io mi auguro e faccio affidamento su di voi, che possiate portare un contributo forte alla filosofia e alla psicoterapia africana. Africana nel senso ad orientamento, a origine africana.
Absolutely. And indeed, that's our endeavour as we embark on this course. There are some that we stand on the shoulders of, such as Gordon, Fanon, Audre Lorde, who we mentioned, Bell Hooks, McClommy, Oren Miller. These are ancient and modern-day Africana existential philosophers. And we do speak about them in our training, but we often speak about them when we're looking at critical race theory or diversity and inclusion, but we're calling for a thread of these philosophers throughout our training, so right from beginning all the way to end, so that when we step into the world of existential therapy, we have more relatability with a diverse range of clients, and we're not centering one worldview. Yeah, thank you.
Grazie a voi.
Thank you.
Are there other questions? Well, thank you very much. It's time to introduce Bo. Okay. Natalia Gladka. Natalia Gladka is Ukrainian since 2022. She's been living in the UK. She works in Brighton in a rock clinic as a psychologist with immigrants and displaced people. Thank you very much.
Thank you. How can you use it? Yeah. It's analytic, it's not my presentation. Sorry, how can I use it? Finally. Hello, everyone. My name is Natasha. I'm Ukrainian. And when the war started, I relocated to the UK with my kids. And as you can see from my slide, today I'm going to talk about Mircea Eliade and his book, The Sacred and the Profane, and how I work with my clients through this book. What is the meaning of home, and what is the sacred and profane in our everyday life? So currently I work in Brighton at Rock Clinic, where my primary focus is supporting Ukrainian refugees and displaced individuals. Additionally, I volunteer with Bramber Bakehouse, an organization that works with survivors of domestic abuse or human trafficking, asylum seekers, and refugees. So at this point, most of my clients are refugees, migrants, and other displaced persons. And over time, the topic of migration has become deeply woven into both my professional practice and personal experience. Well, but to be honest, before the war, I was never particularly interested in the topic of immigration. It always felt distant and had nothing to do with my personal or professional life. Of course, like a psychologist, I've heard about cultural shock of newcomers or different stages of adaptation. But one way or another, immigration was never something I was interested in. And now I have been living in England for almost 3 years. And, well, I still don't know who am I. An immigrant, a refugee, a temporary displaced person, or just like a tourist. So during all this time, I've read countless books and articles about immigration and everything related to it. Well, my main reason for the search was a simple yet resistant question. Why? Why do I still feel such deep longing? It's interesting because I came to terms with the fact of the war faster than I accepted that in some way I don't have a home anymore. So what is home after all? And what is this wound inside me that keeps hurting and aching? Sometimes I found myself in fascinating position. After 3 years of living away from my home country, it feels as though I know everything about it, but nothing at all. So, and now, in my 3rd year in England, I've started to notice that in one way or another, my clients started bring the theme of home. Of course, this topic has appeared before, and perhaps it would be more correct to say that it has never disappeared. But now it's becoming more and more painful and I would even say maybe acute and consuming. So the subject of home has come up more and more often. During the therapy, my clients started to raise questions like, what is home? Or what does home mean for me? Where is my home? And how can I acquire a sense of home? How can I feel at home in England? Or how can I make England my home? And on the other hand, some clients' requests for therapy have changed gradually into a deep self-doubt. Why? Because despite some potential future prospect in England, these clients still want to go back to Ukraine, even if there is a war. They come with a question like, am I all right? What's wrong with me? And in one way or another, they all mention that England will never become home for them because emotionally they feel that their home is still in Ukraine. So gradually, I began to delve into the subject of home. I started thinking about what the phenomenon of home actually means. What is the feeling of home? Why, for instance, do some people still not get the sense of home? Despite having a roof over their head, a job, some kind of security, why do some people decide to return to Ukraine despite the shelling, the war, and difficult economic situation? And one day I came across a writer who became yet another guide in my journey called immigration. And I can say that I believe that books, much like people, can serve as the guides in our lives. Well, and I could say that I was particularly captivated and deeply moved by this book. So that's exactly how I discovered Mircea Eliade and his work, The Sacred and Profane. And for me, it was just amazing how this book helps me to work with my clients in 2 different ways. For some clients, it helps them to adapt better to their new environment. And for others, it can bring some understanding of why they want to return home. My clients, they talked mostly about the fact that they realize that they're experiencing some kind of conflict inside them between, so to speak, objective logic and their true feelings. They ask themselves, how can I possibly want to take my children back to Ukraine? when there is a war? Like, what's wrong with me? And this is what I became interested in. This clash between feelings and some kind of logic. And I feel that Mircea Eliade has given me several profound ideas to reflect on. So let me start to introduce some of his assumptions from the book so that you can understand better what I'm going to talk about. Here are some brief explanation and direct quotes from the book. So please take a moment just to read them through. So, to understand better what a sacred place is for a person, Mircea gives example of a church. So, let's imagine you are in 2025, you are walking down the street, and you see a church at the corner of the block. For a person with a sacred perception of the world, the sense of space will change as soon as he crosses the threshold of this church. So, entering the church, a person symbolically steps into another dimension. Their space becomes non-homogeneous. So, in fact, if we apply this concept to our everyday life, unexpectedly, we may find such a phenomenon also occurs with us quite often in our everyday life. For instance, when you walk around the park where you experienced the happiest hours of your parenthood, your favorite cafe associated with pleasant and warm memories. So symbolically, these places will never be ordinary for you. They will always be your little sacred spaces. Thus, in our everyday life, we also have, I would say, two modes of being, like the profane and the sacred. So, for me, it becomes clear that if we talk about immigration, that moving to another country is not just a change of territory or geographical space, it's something more complex and multidimensional. In fact, for some people, forced relocation is a loss of their sacred places. And if we follow Eliade further, he leads us even to more specific things, namely how a person with a religious perception of the world has chosen his place of home since ancient time. So, a person with a religious attitude towards the world has always found, or perhaps we would say discovered, a sacred place. Sacred place arises from so-called development or consecration of a new place by a person. Consecration of any territory is equal to its cosmization. As long as the territory is not illuminated, it will be chaos. So you see that if we simplify what Mircea says and transfer it to our everyday life, it becomes clear that the world we live in is something understandable and accessible for us. But everything that goes beyond the limits of this world will be chaos for us to some extent. Mircea Eliade's idea is that our world, symbolically, is a former chaos, only sanctified and rebuilt. And according to Mircea Eliade, well, a traditional man with a religious attitude towards the world leads his life using these rules. The first one. So the choice of residence or a place of living is one of the most essential events and decisions in a person's life. Any new territory requires a certain symbolic ritual of consecration in order to transform it from chaos into cosmos. A territory becomes your territory or shelter only after it has been created anew and sanctified. So, to summarize all this, I want to highlight the amazing ability of this book for me to work in two directions at once. So, in the case of those clients who want to return to Ukraine despite the war, the phenomenon of the sacred place has given them some kind of understanding and take them out of the paradigm of logic and some kind of supposed rationality into a stronger belief in themselves and an acceptance what they really feel. Well, of course, the answer is not straightforward, but for me, personally for me, this point of view definitely brings some additional meaning to the phenomenon of home. Namely, that what they're feeling is normal, it's not stupid, it has a place. Well, perhaps for these people, their sacred place has still remained in Ukraine, and wherever they live will be chaos for them, for some extent. Well, this is because a sacred place is not just a geographical point on the map, it is something more complicated. On the other hand, if we are talking about clients who want to build their new life in England, but still experiences some kind of difficulties, Mircea Eliade is also a kind of help to understand that their new reality, which will become their new world, must be created first. Well, in everyday life, these might be very, simple things like going somewhere to study, getting a new profession, learning a language, finding an atmospheric cafe where you could feel your favorite coffee. So, Mircea Eliade's idea is that positive breaks and fractures in chaos start appearing when we start to fill our personal chaos with new memories, important life events, new achievements, touching moments. It's like we start collecting our new sacred places. And this is precisely what Mircea Eliade writes about. So when you find yourself in a state of chaos, where everything around you feels unfamiliar, you need to transform it into cosmos, your own world. How? By creating new sacred spaces within the unknown, places that become meaningful and significant for you. Well, one moment. I was trying to do something funny. So now here are my final thoughts on Mircea Eliade concept and the sacred and profane. Because every speech, every report, I prefer to end in a funny note. So, first on my list is what I called silly grandma trinkets. I'm absolutely certain you know exactly what I mean. So, just imagine, please, you walk into your grandma's house and suddenly you are surrounded by an army of ridiculous porcelain figurines, lace doilies, and decorative knickknacks. Usually, I used to roll, my eyes every single time. I called them dust collectors or just bad plain taste. But then comes along Mircea Eliade, tapping me on my shoulder like, excuse me, these might actually be ritual objects used to sanctify place. And now I can't roll my eyes anymore. Every time when I see how a home is decorated or how a home is arranged, I just think that maybe it's like a sacred place for this person. The second one is teenagers and their terrifying caves. So if you have or ever had a teenager, you will get this constantly. So the creepy posters on the wall, the chaos, the bizarre little objects scattered everywhere. I remember my children, so a room that looks like a crime scene, but no actual crime has committed yet. And just when you think, what's wrong with this child? Eliade pops up again, like, hold on, what if your teenager is actually in the process of creating their very first sacred space? Sure, it looks weird to you, but what they're doing is trying to sanctify their territory, turning it into a space that feels uniquely theirs. And the last one, this is my sister. I promised her that she will take part in my presentation. So I called it Renovating During the War. Well, when the war started, my sister decided to renovate her apartment. Yes, in the middle of the missile strikes and drone attacks. My sister, her name is Rita, she even laughed at herself, calling it completely insane. Like, really? Doing home improvements during the war? Like, pretty dumb. But then there is a Mircea Eliade again, like waving his hands, like, wait a minute. Some people live in a sacred relationship with the world. For them, every rupture in space is something they feel and experience deeply. And suddenly it made like a perfect sense for me. I think that my sister was fighting back against the chaos of war in the only way she could, by reclaiming her space. It looks like the more unbearable the outside world became, the more determined she was to sanctify her home, to turn it into a place of meaning, a place where she could still perform some of her rituals of normalcy and resistance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Natalia. Well, if you have any question, please ask.
Good evening, Natalia. La chiusa che lei ha fatto raccontandoci l'assurdità che Rita volesse... Non ce l'ha la... Ok? Sente? Dicevo, mi ha colpito molto il fatto, il suo finale, che ci ha raccontato che Rita, nonostante la guerra, volesse ristrutturare casa. Ho notato però che lei ha parlato sempre di spazio o di spazio sacralizzato. e mi è venuto in mente quanto ci ha raccontato oggi l'architetto Olivetti e anche quanto ha detto il professor De Luca Picione. Anche tornando a un'altra sua slide. Where is my home? Where is my home? How can I acquire a sense of home? Mi rendo conto che nella vostra situazione, per la quale sono intristito, dispiaciuto, angosciato, è molto difficile, ma può provare a pensare da spazio, casa mia, la mia casa può diventare un luogo? Allora, se accettiamo questo passaggio da spazio a luogo, lo spazio secondo me può anche modificarsi, ma il luogo che per me ha rappresentato e rappresenta quello spazio continuerà a essere il mio luogo. Dico il mio vissuto personale. Io sono originario di un piccolo paese della Campania, proprio piccolo, che come spazi è cambiato negli anni, anche in maniera disordinata. Tuttavia per me quel posto resta il mio luogo, anche se lo spazio è cambiato. Possiamo assumere questa cosa anche per aiutare le persone che si chiedono dov'è casa mia e come casa mia può essere e come posso dare un senso a casa mia. Grazie.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. I would say that it's just the beginning of my journey, of the theme. And for me, it was very important to find some kind of understanding. And what I feel that I just start, I'm like, Miss Marple in this way, like Hercule Poirot. Yeah, and for me, it's very important to find only my answers. So maybe next time I will come to another conclusion and just gather it all together, but it's very profound comments. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. It's time to introduce Mr. Bo Blavarg. He's a Swedish and existential psychologist too. He is also chair and honorary member of Swedish Society for Existential Psychotherapy.
Right. All right, dear colleagues, thank you for the introduction. I will talk about existential supervision and existential supervision in other settings than therapy training, in settings in healthcare and social care. So, there are 4 areas of existential supervision, at least. There could be many more than these 4, but at least these are 4 areas. Existential therapists in training, receiving existential supervision. Existential therapists as an ongoing professional development. Existential supervision for therapists from other orientations as an integrative aspect. And in other settings, healthcare, social work, that do not practice existential therapy per se, And the team members are not necessarily trained therapists. This could be a cancer care, obstetric care, and other settings in healthcare, or social housing facilities, addiction treatment, marriage counseling, and so forth. And we all know there is a need for supervision when we encounter in our work patients with severe diseases on the limits of life. But we also know it's hard work. It's easy to fall in exhaustion. It's easy to fall in self-accusations. Why am I not better at my work? Why are my patients not better? Is there any flaws in my personality or my education? Some flaws in my personality and so forth. And these self-accusations also can follow with shame of myself professionally, that I'm not good enough. And I would maybe withdraw from social activities or from the team around me. There's often dilemmas in other domains of my life that hinders or affects my work as a professional or my meeting with the patients. There are conflicts with other team members, and there's also ethical dilemmas where I carry out actions that is commended to me by the workplace, and which I myself experience as inauthentic and against my own values and ethics. We can experience a loss of meaning and a loss of motivation. And there's, of course, a risk for burnout, since burnout is definited as feelings of energy depletion and exhaustion, increased mental distance from one's job, feelings of negativism or cynicism related to one's job, and reduced professional efficacy. This is a definition from the coming ICD-11 from the World Health Organization. So we need supervision, but why do we need existential supervision? Well, these are some aspects of existential supervision in other areas than therapy training. First of all, we have the ontologic and the ontic levels, which is ideal for groups. Most of the supervision in healthcare is held in groups. So we have the ontological level where all the people in the group or the team share the same ontological givens, share the same feeling of being human. And we also have the team members as individuals at the same time in the group, on the ontic level, responding to these universal givens and to patients and other things in the work. And regarding what we had seen before, in existential supervision, the supervisees are in focus, not the patient or the client, but the supervisees' worldview and health are in focus. And as existential supervisors, we are aware of the the hardness of human existence, that we fail, that we make mistakes, that we're happy sometimes, we're troubled sometimes, and so forth. That is something we're accustomed to when we come in from an existential perspective. And this is something that I find interesting. The freedom inherent in the existential phenomenological approach, the explorative nature, the descriptive nature, allows us to be free in the group. We're not going anywhere special. The team members are not going anywhere special. They're free to explore, free to think, free to wonder, free to laugh. There's no specific goals for the group to reach. So there is a kind of freedom in the group that comes with the existential phenomenological approach. And we also bring the whole person into the supervision group, including the supervisor, of course. So we don't split up a person as a work person, a home person, a father or a daughter or so on. We bring the whole person into the supervising group. And we don't pathologize the team members. If we fail, or if we don't have the courage, or if we are exhausted, it's not a sign of a diagnosis or so. And we let the supervisees be as they are in the group. And of course, many professionals working in healthcare need support for working with existential concerns. Recent studies in Scandinavia mostly show that healthcare professionals lack in training in working with existential concerns. And the studies also show that this lack of training leads to feelings of inadequacy and anxiety and difficulties to stay present with the patient in their existential concerns and existential loneliness. And also having personal reactions to together with the patient, which hinder them in their work. And I think this is important. So this is another aspect of why existential supervision can be crucial in healthcare and social care. And also this is a quote I think you've seen from Hans Kohn, because it's a famous quote. The patient you meet as a therapist is the patient that meets you. There is no client as such. If two therapists meet the same client, it's not the same client. You recognize that, don't you? So every human meeting is unique, and the members of the supervision group team has each a different relation to and understanding of the client. And that means that if we bring one client into the supervision group, it's not one client, it's 5 or 6 clients. And that is very crucial, because that is a way of setting the client free from being, otherwise in many clients groups, they have to adopt one way of treating a client. How shall we as a team meet the client? And then the client might get stuck in one way of relating. And this is a way of liberating the client to have, even if I have a diagnosis, I can still be many different persons, have many different relationships in the team or in the team members. And it can also help the team to choose who among us should be closest to this patient. All right, so now to the highlights. We're going to talk about existential supervision in trauma treatment from interpersonal traumas from childhood, sexual abuse, violence in childhood, or interpersonal relations. As an example, so this is a quote from Rollo May: "The world is the structure of meaningful relationships in which a person lives and which they help to create." And so, the victim of violence or abuse in a close relationship is plunged into non-meaning and struggling to make sense of the world again. And this severe emotional pain that we have to experience alone in most cases can become long-lasting traumatic and can lead to emotional encapsulation. It's just a figure that comes to mind. I think around 3 to 5% of the children being sexually abused are getting help when it happens. So some people seek help when they're young, old, I mean. But when it happens, they are alone with this, with the abuse, the effects of the abuse and the emotions around the abuse. So, and that is the category of sometimes severely traumatic people you work with when you work with trauma treatment from interpersonal trauma. And one concept that is good to bring into that work is the concept of existential shattering coined by Robert Greening, and it goes beyond the symptoms of PTSD and addresses the existential issues like being overwhelmed by ontological emptiness and ontological nothingness. Since our world is broken down, the world we have created through meaningful relations. When one's general sense of meaning in life is replaced by feelings of absurdity, meaninglessness, incomprehensibility, and we suddenly lack a foundation to stand on in the world, and a serious interruption in the person's meaning in life and their relationships, a confrontation with one or more of our given circumstances, and the obviousness of everyday life, that obviousness that keeps us going on from day to day and hoping there's a good day tomorrow as well. And any one of us who has worked with interpersonal traumas knows that it requires a lot of us to stand close to and be there with these persons because there's an impact on us as therapists, sometimes a big and huge impact on us. And it affects our relations to the givens. Our relations to the givens are changed when meeting with the patient or the client. How can I keep the sense of meaning in living or with the world when I daily meet severely, brutally beaten people? When I come to work and meet brutality every day? How can I, for myself, find a meaning to go on and find that there is a meaning in this world at all? For example, and we also have, for us as therapists, the ontological and ontic levels again. I might meet a person who has a trauma that is like one I had as a child, and that will absolutely affect me and also the team around me maybe. If the trauma the patient has had evokes mine. So. And also on the ontological level, as we have said, the patient's despair can awaken my own despair or afraid of dying. We have secondary traumatization, of course, as we all know. And as we have mentioned, an exhaustion of dealing with existential themes every day. So, as another supervisor of mine said, you can't be there all the time. You have to do something else in your work life than meeting these people, because it's too hard in the long run. You'll get worn out. You will lose your joy in life. Maybe, but there's a risk. So what we need to bring, and I think it's a good help to have these concepts with us, describes what we do and what we need to have with us in the supervision and in the work. And this is something I like, and it's coined by Siebrecht van Weerhoorn. It's the existential empathy. I think you've heard about it as well. It is what we need to have with us to endure the client's overwhelming existential despair without alleviating it. To stand there, to be there, day after day, and perhaps providing nothing else but a relation. A relational home, maybe for the first time for that patient. And to endure the ontological meaninglessness together with the client. And that's what we have to do as well. And allowing the client's existential despair to be grounded in our own existential dilemmas. No. So, some considerations. People in healthcare are generally do not have knowledge about existential theory and practice. So you may have to give a lecture introducing existential thought and supervision to this group. They are most commonly used to a consultant mode of supervision. That is, the supervisor as an expert and who can suggest and tell the supervisees what to do, direct them in the contact with the patient. So you may need a form of existential contract, that is, what we will do and why, and that is expressed and clear in the contract with the manager or whoever hires you. And there's also some challenges, of course. To endure the suffering of the healthcare professionals, some challenges for the supervisor, I mean. To endure the suffering of the healthcare professionals without giving advice and stay in description and exploring, leaving it up to the individual to take action if needed. And of course, existential empathy on part of the supervisor. And to resist the urge of the supervisees to get a prescription of how to meet with the patient. And also the uncertainty we feel as supervisors to enter in a group without knowing where it will lead and without knowing where the group is this time. Because it can be a totally different group than the one we saw a month ago. There's so much happening since we last met the group. And this is a crucial question as well. When do we actually intervene as existential supervisions? Can we let anything go? Or are there specific things where we say we have to step in as supervisor and say, no, that is not okay. You can't do this and you have to, this is something you need to take care of immediately because it's dangerous or something. So there are these moments where you have to leave the descriptive and exploring phase and be more and intervene even as an existential supervisor when it becomes dangerous maybe for the professionals or for the patients. So these are hard words. This could be a hard professional every day-to-day life. So, but as we have spoken, when a supervised group works, there can also be an easiness to finally be able to speak about this in a non-judgmental atmosphere. So there can also, of course, be laughter. And this is some positive voices I noted from the year past. It has been easy to be open. A safe place, someone called it. And someone said, I'm not used to talk about feelings in a group. And another one said, now I understood what my colleagues feel and where they are in their private lives. And another one said, it was about the whole of me as a person for the first time. And now I am becoming able to matter to the patient. I dare to matter to the patient. I've been ashamed to talk about this before, and best supervision I've had. So, this is a quote from Emmy van Dersen and Sarah Young from their book from 2009. If existential supervision is to thrive and become a serious contender for public health-based supervision, it will be essential for existential supervisors to practice in a manner that is as jargon-free as possible. If these conditions are considered, the future of existential supervision is filled with promise, and I can only agree. And I can only recommend you to work in healthcare as existential supervision. It's very exciting and rewarding for us as supervisors. And before I end, we have been talking from now and then during these days about working in groups. And this is exactly what we do in existential supervision in healthcare. We work in groups. And we've also been talking about reaching out with existential thought and existential thinking in areas of the society where the thoughts and thinking aren't established yet. And that is exactly what we do when we use existential supervision in healthcare and social care where existential thought hasn't reached yet. So, thank you.
Avrei bisogno delle cuffie.
Of course. Yes.
Grazie innanzitutto per il suo contributo e volevo chiederle quanto secondo lei la supervisione esistenziale o a indirizzo esistenziale, la supervisione in ambito sanitario è andata oltre e in che modo, se lo ha fatto, i vecchi gruppi Balint.
Well, thank you. That's a difficult question, I think.
Sto cercando di rispondere. Scusi. Una metodica di supervisione in ambito medico, non sanitario in genere, ma specifico per i medici, introdotto da Enid e John Balint, appunto, negli anni 60, primissimi 70, no, più 60, alla famosa Tavistock Clinic di Londra. E c'era un conduttore che aiutava i partecipanti, ripeto, nasce in ambito proprio medico, erano solo medici, quindi non sanitari in senso lato per come intendiamo oggi, quindi oltre che medici, psicologi, psicoterapeuti, assistenti sociali, e aiutava il conduttore, il gruppo, a elaborare i propri vissuti emotivi nei confronti di un caso clinico presentato di volta in volta da ciascuno dei partecipanti al gruppo. In estrema sintesi, chiaramente. Grazie.
There must be overlapping, of course. There must be Yeah, okay. Yeah, start. And so there must be a lot of similarities, maybe. So I'm sorry I can't describe the differences or so, but it sounds like there is some overlap, of course, between the methods. So, but one answer could be that the existential supervision expressively brings in existential thought and practice into the group, also as a kind of education or so. I'm sorry I can't answer the question better.
Sono abbastanza d'accordo con lei, nel senso che credo che su quel modello, ripeto, parliamo anni 60, si sia innestato un qualcosa in più con la supervisione di tipo auto-orientamento esistenziale, nel senso che i gruppi Balint svisceravano il vissuto emotivo del medico nei confronti di quel singolo caso. Probabilmente, dico probabilmente, la supervisione a indirizzo esistenziale modifica i vissuti in generale, modifica la consapevolezza dell'operatore nei confronti del suo lavoro complessivamente. Possiamo accettare, possiamo condividere una cosa del genere?
Yes, I think we can find an agreement on that. Thank you very much for your comment. And maybe the Balint group is something that can inspire us as well further on. Thank you.
Grazie, volevo rispondere al signore che ha fatto adesso la domanda. Salve. E volevo dire che a Roma, io sono un'infermiera, lavoro a un reparto di neuropsichiatria infantile, noi facciamo ogni settimana il Balint, quindi è un'attività molto frequente perché stando a contatto per tante ore, tanti giorni con questi pazienti, in questo caso minorenni, che hanno subito tanti tipi di abusi o istinti suicidari e così via, facciamo questo tipo di progetto insieme a una psicologa, insieme al medico, ed è veramente molto utile perché aiuta, come diceva lei, intanto a prendere il caso di un paziente e quindi analizzarlo in tutte le sue sfaccettature, con la storia della famiglia, del paziente in sé, ma anche capire come noi ci dobbiamo comportare con lui, perché ogni caso è diverso dall'altro. Un paziente schizofrenico è diverso da un altro paziente schizofrenico e così via. E per noi è fondamentale perché non è una sessione di un'ora con cui tu parli al paziente, ma si tratta di a volte anche 13 ore e così via, insomma. La trovo molto utile.
Faccio io una domanda a lei adesso. 13 ore un singolo gruppo Balint? Cioè, ok, perfetto, ci siamo. Allora, la domanda è, secondo lei ha partecipato alle 3 giornate, mi sembra di aver capito, può dare qualcosa in più l'indirizzo esistenziale alla tecnica dei gruppi Balint?
Sì, allora io non conoscevo questo indirizzo e penso sia veramente molto affascinante e utile, e anzi cioè la proporrò anche al mio reparto perché sarebbe molto utile soprattutto per noi professionisti della salute, operatori sanitari, ma anche i medici stessi, perché come è stato detto anche ieri, i psichiatri, i neuropsichiatri infantili anche, sono i primi a non sapere spesso come rapportarsi con il paziente. Magari si agisce molto a livello farmacologico, ma poi a livello di relazione, soprattutto a dosare l'empatia, questo è fondamentale. Ci insegnano ad essere empatici, ma non a poterla poi gestire.
Perfetto, grazie, ci ha dato notizie, informazioni molto utili. Non so se lei è d'accordo con quanto ha detto la collega.
I had a little hard to follow the conversation, but it sounded good. I didn't get the question really, but if we can leave it there, it's okay. Yeah.
So, Bo, if I can help you,
Yes.
as we've heard, Balint groups were set up as from the initiative of the Balints for shorter-term psychoanalysis, and they were very committed to psychoanalysis. Balint groups are still included in lots of psychiatry trainings. Psychiatrists sometimes like them and sometimes try and get out of them, like everything, in training. And they are very psychoanalytically oriented, usually. Now, I think there will be some, and they're run by consultant psychotherapists who sometimes don't have a big role in the NHS anymore. So some of those will be like you, more interested in creating a kind of human environment in which we're trying to find a way of meeting with our patients and supporting young psychiatrists who find that scary or who've been told not to do it too much. Others will be a bit more rigid, probably. I think what you're pointing out, though, is that psychoanalysis isn't the best place to start.
Or end.
Well, yeah, or end. But of course, as we all know, the quality of supervision depends an awful lot on the quality or the something or other in us as supervisors. And I'm sure there are brilliant Barlink group leaders and perhaps not such good existential supervisors. But I think what you were setting out was a way of formulating, a way of looking at these different dimensions. And perhaps some of us who've been supervisors for a long time will be comparing our practice with yours. And I was, and I don't think I'm quite as kind of human focused as you are. So that was very interesting, and especially interesting that you talked a lot about the pressure on especially young practitioners or inexperienced practitioners who can be faced with the most terrible worries and, suicidal patients who actually commit suicide, that, all that stuff. So, but at the end of the day, I think really it's about being a good supervisor as much as being a good existential supervisor or a good Barlink group leader.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we introduce Yarina Kapulenko. She's a PhD in psychology. She's Ukrainian. She's a psychotherapist, trainer and supervisor in the existential analysis and logotherapy. And she is a senior researcher of the Institute of Psychology named after GS. She today can't come here, so she sent us a video to present her intervention. Thank you.
Good evening, dear colleagues. My name is Yarina Kapulenko. I am psychologist, psychotherapist, trainer and supervisor in existential analysis and logotherapy. First of all, I would like to congratulate you with such remarkable event, the 10th anniversary of FETE, and it's a pity for me that I couldn't be present with all of you and share this experience. But despite this, I am grateful for the opportunity to present my report in record. The topic of my report is the extraordinary human experience, contemporary psychological perspectives. I would like to start mention that in recent years, both clinical practice and psychological research had begun to pay increasing attention to experiences that lie beyond the ordinary. Phenomena such as altered state of consciousness, profound synchronicities, moment of radical inner transformation, peak experiences, so-called abnormal experience, and so on. They are not merely anomalies and curiosities, rather they point to a multidimensional nature of human existence. Our lives unfold across layers, biological, psychological, and anthropological, each governed by its own logic, yet deeply interwoven. From an existential perspective, these extraordinary moments can be seen as a threshold where our sense of meaning, identity, and freedom are renegotiated. In this short presentation, I will explore how contemporary psychology and dialogue with existential analysis provides a framework to understand and integrate these experiences. I do not pretend to cover the full range of extraordinary human experiences in this short 20 minutes presentation, of course. Rather, I will highlight a few of them, those we may encounter in the course of our life, or that our clients may encounter due to the currently unstable and challenging condition of ongoing event. Many people can face extraordinary experience which they often called unusual. For example, déjà vu, je m'en vu, delusions, deep grief reaction, prolonged sleep deprivation, synesthesia, flashback, panic attack, near-death experience, dissociative states in different sphere of activities. Some may find them fascinating or mystical, sometimes fearful, but for most, when they appear suddenly, it can be disturbing and shift one's perception and beliefs. Such experiences are usually remembered even if they occur once, and often influence a person's worldview. This experience may contain pearls of wisdom worth recognizing. The touch of war is a poison that has entered millions of Ukrainian homes and hearts. Ongoing fighting, air raids, shelling, insecurity, loss of control over the future, prolonged stress, displacement, all demand vast physical and mental resources. When those are exhausted, the psyche may seek protection by disconnecting from this painful reality. On this ground, unusual, even anomalous experience may arise, or conversely, this may awaken inner resilience. First of all, I would like to start from the concept of anomalous or dissociative experience. Such experience appear across various mental health disorders. The term dissociation can be vague, encompassing many phenomena. What unites them is the felt sense of anomaly, a sense that something feels off in areas such as body or emotion. For example, my body doesn't feel like mine. I don't control time. It feels like this is not my life. I feel like I am in a parallel reality. I don't feel like I am feeling anything at all. Reality seems like a nightmare, etc. Classic dissociation connected with altered experience of the self, body, emotions, familiar worlds, connection, agency, or reality. Pierre Janet understood dissociation as altered state of consciousness resulted from traumatic events. The range of phenomena has expanded greatly. Among the various forms of extraordinary experience, dissociation stands out as both clinically relevant and phenomenologically rich. One of the current leading researcher of in this field, Holmes and his colleagues, distinguish two main subcategories of dissociation. One of them is detachment, which can appear in form of depersonalization and derealization, and another form is compartmentalization. It means loss of control over processes that are normally integrated. For example, amnesia, identity disruption, seizure, and so on. It's important to understand that this form reflects different pathways through which the psyche was respond to overwhelming or fragmented experience. A key point from existential reflection as well. These are independent and differ in severity, referring to both as dissociation may mean two distinct things. We can also observe a remarkable broadening of the concept of dissociation in recent years. Historically, one of the main tools used to assess dissociative experience was the dissociative experience scale. While useful It had notable limitation, especially in its inability to capture emotional numbing, a key aspect of certain dissociative states. Today, more nuanced instruments are being developed and deployed. One such example is the Oxford CEFSA scale, the Fell Sense of Anomaly scale, which include 7 domains of dissociative experience, among them anomalous experience of self, anomalous experience of physical body, altered sense of familiarity, abnormal sense of emotional, altered sense of connection, altered sense of will, and sense of reality. This scale was constructed by Chernis and his colleague in 2021. This extended perspective helps us understand dissociation not just as a pathological symptom, but as a rich and complex phenomena that often reflects in existential disruption in the structure of lived experience. Another important dimension of human experience that I would like to touch upon is the existential anxiety. Strictly speaking, is not an extraordinary phenomenon. Rather, it is an inherent part of what it means to be human. However, in time of instability and crisis, such as the ones we are currently facing, existential anxiety tends to emerge with particular intensity. It reflects our deep confrontation with uncertainty, vulnerability, and the fundamental questions of meaning, freedom, and mortality, questions that become inevitable when the structure of everyday life are shaken. Existential anxiety is a person's special concern about the meaning of life, finitude, limitation, and his own identity, assessment of the fulfillment of his own life, summing up what has been done. According to Garrett Glass, existential anxiety is a concern about the life as a whole, rooted in awareness of the fundamental condition of human existence. Paul Tillich identifies 3 existential domains of anxiety, each reflecting a confrontation with the non-being. Among them, anxiety of fear, fate and death, anxiety of emptiness and meaninglessness, anxiety of guilt and condemnation. Viktor Frankl describes existential anxiety through the lens of the existential vacuum, a condition of inner emptiness resulting from the loss of meaning, leading to frustration and apathy. These theoretical perspectives on existential anxiety highlights its universal and multidimensional nature. But beyond theoretical models, this anxiety is often lived deeply and painfully in what has been described as a dark night of the soul. This phrase refers to a profound existential spiritual crisis, a state marked by inner emptiness, disorientation, and loss of meaning. Although phenomenologically similar to depression, sharing states of powerlessness, isolation, fear, and guilt, it differs in its fundamental, transformative, and spiritual orientation. While depression often incapacitates a person's daily functioning, the dark night of soul, despite its suffering, preserves one's inner striving and responsibility. It represents a painful but meaningful process of inner purification, wherein former beliefs dissolve, making space for a renewal understanding of self and existence. Yet just as human experience includes darkness and disorientation, it also holds the potential for moments of profound clarity and elevation. In contrast to existential despair, we also encounter what Abraham Maslow described as peak experiences, brief transformative moments in which individuals feel deeply connected, whole, and fully alive. Let us now turn to this other pole of the human spectrum, moments of expansion, transcendence, and insight. The term of peak experiences refers to sudden and profound moments of intense happiness, existential fullness, and deep sense of unity of transcendence. often accompanied by an insight into an absolute truth or the interconnection of all things. Abraham Maslow considers such experiences as a core aspect of self-actualization of a person. According to him, individuals who strive to realize their potential are more likely to encounter these moments. He emphasized that even a single peak experience can significantly transform a person's worldview and sense of self. Importantly, Maslow didn't classify the states as an altered state of consciousness. Rather, he viewed them as natural and elevated expressions of human awareness, the highest manifestation of a fully activated psyche. Some peak experience go even further. They are not only moments of joy and clarity, but encounters with something greater than the self. This brings us to another form of extraordinary human experience, religion experience, moments marked by a profound sense of the transcendent, the secret, or the divine. Religion experience often involve a profound sense of mystery, perceived dependence on the divine force or invisible reality. They may evoke our fear of divine judgment or inner peace rooted in the hope of forgiveness. As a highly subjective phenomena, religion experience resists standard of scientific objectivation and belongs to a distinct epistemological paradigm. It is sometimes interpreted as a contact with the divine or with manifestation or alternative reality. Carl Gustav Jung, well known for us, also explored extraordinary human experiences, viewing them as expressions of the deep psyche and manifestation of the collective unconscious. Through dreams, archetypes, and synchronicities, such experiences reveal symbolic truths that transcend in everyday awareness. In his early dissertation, Jung began exploring what would later become his concept of a collective unconscious, a deep layer of the psyche shared by all human. This multidimensional view of the human being resonates with the Viktor Frankl's existential model, which distinguishes three fundamental dimensions: body, psyche, and spirit. While the human person remains a unified whole, each dimension follows its own principles: biological, psychological, and anthropological. The spiritual dimension introduces freedom, meaning, and value orientation, often transcending psychophysical constraints. Within this framework, the human being is seen as both open and unfinished, shaped but in a tension across their dimension. Integration occurs not through uniformity, but through the paradoxical unity of these divergent forces. In contemporary existential analysis, spirituality is understood not as a separate domain, but an anthropological dimension of the human being, a core aspect of the person concept. The person refers to an existential center of the human being, capable of relating to meaning, freedom, and values. This dimension enables the experience of fundamental trust in the world and a felt sense of being embedded in the ground of being itself. Rather than being externally imposed, spirituality is lived as an existential capacity to resonate with the depths and structure of existence. As an extension of the anthropological existential understanding of the person, extraordinary experience may be viewed as manifestation of a deeper layers of human subjectivity. Such phenomena often transcend original state of consciousness and challenge conventional epistemological boundaries. This experience, though diverse in form, often signal a shift in the inner landscape. They may emerge from deeper and sometimes unconsciousness or transpersonal layer of the psyche, touching the spiritual core of the person. In doing so, they can open pathway towards integration, transformation, sometimes, of course, to inner conflict and disorientation. In a complex or crisis situation, individuals may also report phenomena that are perceived as clear extraordinary or even abnormal, such as clairvoyance, telepathy, prophetic dreams, visual anomalies such as lights, shapes, or color field, and so on, meaningful numerical coincidence, synchronicities, and so on. While often interpreted as irrational, this experience reveals deeper psychological or existential dynamics. In exploring the possible foundation of such experiences, Spitz and Toller point to underlying psychological and existential causes that may contribute to this emerging. Among them, externalization of inner conflict. It means the individual may attribute difficult events or emotions to external forces, for example, force, magic, curses, and so on, thereby avoiding personal responsibility. Another reason is avoidance of trauma. Focusing on the extraordinary may serve as a defense against unresolved emotional pain, allowing the person to bypass engagement with past trauma and concentrate solely on the positive. Another reason is self-enhancement. A report of exceptional experiences may serve to elevate self-image, portraying the individual as unique, gifted, or spiritually advanced. Meaning making under duress means that personal losses or failure may be reframed as a meaningful trials or spiritual test, helping to restore coherence and purpose. This interpretation may reflect an attempt to regain a sense of control, significance, or connection to a greater order, especially in the face of uncertainty, suffering, or existential disruption. When we turn into psychological and psychotherapeutic support in such cases, a few key points stand out. First of all, of course, it is essential to establish a strong therapeutic relationship. Further, we begin to gather in detailing information about the experience, when and where it happened, who else was present, what exactly the clients perceived, and what their first spontaneous thoughts or association were there. Even seemingly random impression can be meaningful in this situation. Next, we clarify the goal of the counseling process. Often this includes helping the client integrate this experience into their personal story, de-dramatize it, and adjust any unrealistic expectations that may have formed around it. In terms of strategy, we focus on developing cognitive flexibility, encouraging clients to explore different interpretations, offering psychoeducation, and supporting their willingness to experiment with new perspectives. Another important step is to help clients to create a meaningful narrative, one that waves the extraordinary experience into their understanding of themselves and the world. Finally, we would work on restoring the sense of control and grounding. That could mean developing a structured daily routine, paying attention to concrete situation, places, or physical sensation, anything that helps re-ensure the person in the here and now. In the context of existential analysis, we can use triple positioning methods to help people in situation when they overwhelmed by feeling of helplessness, passivity, irrational beliefs, anxiety, depressive thoughts, crisis, or any incomprehensible experience in the context in this context. As this approach helps a person regain inner stability and orient themselves into the midst of a challenging or overwhelming experience. It consists of three main steps. Position towards the external. It means encouraging the client to face the fact. What has actually happened? What can be verified? This is about clarifying reality and reducing confusion. The next step is position towards the internal. It helps the person return to themselves, How do I feel myself in this situation? What is happening inside me due to this experience? This involves reconnection with oneself, adjusting internally, and preparing to engage with the situation. And the third step is a position towards the positive. Finally, we help them orient towards what matters. What is meaningful or valuable in this context in general and for person particularly? This step invites acceptance of the positive aspect and alignment with their deeper values. This structured orientation strengthens the personal position and builds an inner foothold that allows the person to act more consciously and freely. In general, this is all that I would like to say in this short presentation. For me, this topic is very interesting. You can use this literature to explore more about this experience and counseling approach to help people in with such experiences and situations. Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope to see you on our next meeting.
Do you hear me? Okay. Thanks to Yarina Kapulenko, even if she's not here. Now it's time for the last but not least, Mr. Paolo Quagliarella. He's a philosopher, psychologist, and professor of epistemology at the Eternal School. He's also an expert in analytical psychology and archetypal astrology.
Prova. Perfetto. Buonasera a tutti ancora. Allora, come sapete, si sente ormai parlare spessissimo da più di 3 anni dell'utilizzo di quelli che sono i chatbot e gli LLM, i Large Language Model, e hanno preso piede anche nell'ambito della psicologia e della psicoterapia. Una domanda che mi sono fatto inizialmente è stata fondamentalmente questa. Siamo partiti col Covid e con la remotizzazione degli incontri, e già in questo caso si creava uno spazio fra lo psicologo, il terapeuta, lo psichiatra e il paziente dall'altra parte, quindi uno spazio virtuale. Tornando alla collega che parlava prima, questo spazio non è sacralizzabile così come lo spazio fisico di quando ci si reca dal professionista. Quindi anche questo mi ha fatto riflettere. Nello stesso tempo però, con i chatbot, quindi con quegli strumenti che altro non sono che delle chat tramite le quali si può conversare e si può parlare, si aggiunge ancora un altro spazio, un altro limite di spazio, che oltre a essere virtuale è uno spazio vuoto perché non c'è un soggetto, non c'è una parte umana. Allora su questo mi sono interrogato e ho detto però cambia un po' tutta la visione del mondo, cambia un po' la visione della terapia in senso stretto. Ma c'è da dire che, come vedremo velocemente, ci sono diversi studi invece che confermano la bontà dei chatbot, il funzionamento dei chatbot. Bisogna definire che cosa significa funzionare per i chatbot, qual è l'effetto terapeutico, che tipo di cura, tra virgolette, permettono. Io imposto il mio discorso sulla narrazione, perché quando noi siamo di fronte a un chatbot, a una chat, altro non facciamo che narrare la nostra storia. Ma noi quotidianamente narriamo la nostra storia, noi parliamo, rinarriamo. L'uomo dall'inizio dei tempi ha sentito il bisogno di scrivere la propria storia, di raccontare quello che faceva, di descriverlo, di dipingerlo, e la narrazione ha un effetto sia di ricordo, sia un effetto positivo, soprattutto perché, come si afferma in alcuni studi, la narrazione permette di riscrivere e riordinare i propri pensieri, anche le esperienze traumatiche vengono proprio rinarrate, descritte e comprese in altro modo. A tal proposito mi viene in mente una citazione di Marie-Louise von Franz, allieva di Carl Gustav Jung, che diceva: nella parola racconto noi troviamo il verbo contare, che è mettere in ordine. Quindi quando noi raccontiamo già naturalmente mettiamo ordine nei nostri pensieri, mettiamo ordine nelle nostre cose. Quindi questo mettere ordine è già curativo di per sé, se vogliamo, a prescindere dal terapeuta, a prescindere dal chatbot. Quindi è la narrazione che in qualche modo prende forma. La narrazione come strumento di coesione sociale, perché appunto noi stiamo assieme, parliamo, ci ascoltiamo. E la narrazione come costruzione dell'identità. Noi ci narriamo delle storie. Lo stesso pensiero di Paul Václavic ci mette in evidenza proprio come noi rinarriamo il mondo, pensiamo alla realtà inventata e come attraverso questa narrazione possiamo darci delle linee guida, leggere il mondo in modo diverso e leggere noi stessi in modo diverso. Ci sono dei meccanismi appunto neurali che mettono in evidenza come la narrazione sia importante anche nel rapporto fra paziente e terapeuta, ovvero fra colui il quale parla e l'altro che ascolta. Ci sono degli studi di Uri Hasson in particolar modo che hanno evidenziato come a livello di elettroencefalogramma di onde cerebrali ci sia una sincronizzazione fra colui il quale parla, le onde cerebrali del parlante e dell'ascoltatore, quindi c'è proprio un fatto fisiologico. Poi nel racconto, sempre attraverso altri studi, si è evidenziato che le persone che raccontavano una storia entravano in una sorta di immersione narrativa, così come quando guardano dei film, leggono un romanzo, sempre attraverso questi studi e risonanze magnetiche, hanno scoperto che c'è una immersion, che si definisce in questi studi, quindi è l'immersione narrativa, permette di entrare in empatia con i personaggi e quindi in qualche modo rileggere anche la propria storia all'interno di questi personaggi. E questo è curativo dal punto di vista traumatico, così come in diverse descrizioni proprio nell'ambito medico-clinico. Medicina, appunto, medicina narrativa e terapia. Ritroviamo anche in questo caso diversi studi che mettono in evidenza come la parte narrativa sia curativa, sia dal punto di vista dell'utilizzo delle fiabe, così come dall'utilizzo di altri strumenti narrativi, lo scrivere delle storie. Quindi vediamo che le storie, il narrare e così via sono diversi i paper, poi chi volesse posso condividere la bibliografia, sono veramente tanti paper che spiegano come la narrazione in diversi momenti sia utile e funzionale. Quando narriamo, il potere trasformativo del racconto possiamo dividerlo in tre momenti. C'è una dimensione emotiva, una dimensione cognitiva e una dimensione relazionale. Quindi quando ascoltiamo, quando narriamo, abbiamo queste tre dimensioni che in una certa maniera noi possiamo vivere e comunicare all'esterno che sentiamo. Questo è un po' quello che vi raccontavo, alcuni studi di Cruz et al. Sulle lesioni cerebrali, quindi proprio ripensare problemi fisici, soprattutto in questo studio, che proprio rinarrarli aiutava a vivere nel gruppo, narrare nel gruppo, quindi diventa un fatto fondamentale. Stessa cosa, un po' quello che vi ho raccontato prima, qui vado veloce, sono appunto altri studi in cui ho sintetizzato prima raccontandovi la parte iniziale. La dimensione esistenziale è l'attribuzione di senso, perché appunto attraverso la narrazione noi diamo senso alla nostra storia, a quello che ci è capitato, a quello che abbiamo vissuto. Questi sono ancora altri studi che mettono in evidenza dei temi chiave. Quindi la narrazione influenza la percezione di sé. I modelli di linguaggio, gli LLM, i Large Language Model, si chiamano appunto modelli di linguaggio di grandi dimensioni, e il loro funzionamento utilizzo nell'ambito della salute mentale. Allora possiamo pensare a tre momenti. Il primo momento è il primo momento di utilizzo di questi Large Language Model, quindi di questi chatbot anche, per il terapeuta, può essere questo, secondo questi studi, ovvero utilizzare lo strumento come un semplificatore di analisi dei dati. Un altro modo di utilizzarlo è dare un'identità, come si fa con i prompt, a questi strumenti e dire: tu sei uno psicoterapeuta cognitivo-comportamentale, io ti passo questo caso, tu che ne pensi, come agiresti, che cosa faresti? E lui dà delle suggestioni. Questo è un approccio che io non amo particolarmente, perché non lo trovo particolarmente funzionale, così come, passando anche ad un altro argomento, l'utilizzo dei chatbot nell'ambito dello studio dei bambini, dei ragazzi che vanno a scuola è assolutamente negativo, perché cancella totalmente la possibilità di creare, di studiare, di pensare, di mettere assieme le capacità cognitive. A maggior ragione nell'ambito terapeutico può essere come supporto, è come quando uno psicologo, uno psicoterapeuta, che ne so, cerca, non si ricorda un mito, apre un dizionario di mitologia perché il paziente in quel momento ne sta parlando e lo trova, però ha già competenze pregresse, quindi bisogna sempre avere competenze pregresse e magari, secondo me, farsi dare una mano. In questo studio emerge proprio questo, che poi l'altra possibilità è quella dell'autonomia completa della terapia con un chatbot. Quindi il chatbot risponde e c'è tutta la parte terapeutica. Io ovviamente non mi trovo d'accordo assolutamente con questo tipo di prodotto, seppure ne esistono soprattutto già negli Stati Uniti, perché c'è comunque sempre bisogno di una supervisione umana, perché quando si parla, i chatbot, come abbiamo visto, come si è letto, inventano cose, tendono a rispondere, ad essere accondiscendenti, a dire sempre qualcosa, ok, va bene, sono modelli stocastici, alla fine statistica, niente di più e niente di meno. Quindi bisogna prestare grande attenzione a questo tipo di strumenti. Ci vuole un supporto, quindi è come quando chiamiamo il nostro operatore telefonico sulla chat online e non ci risponde, allora chiediamo il supporto dell'operatore. Allora, utilizzato in questo modo magari può avere senso, nel senso che l'operatore dall'altra parte è lo psicologo, il terapeuta, il sanitario che può intervenire. Ora, è indubbio però che questo tipo di strumenti siano dei facilitatori all'avvicinamento delle persone che non hanno possibilità di avvicinarsi alla terapia, nel senso che se noi forniamo un chatbot in zone magari difficoltose in cui non c'è un professionista, eccetera, sicuramente aiuta e avvicina. Può diventare poi un effetto leva positivo, nel senso che dal chatbot poi si passa al terapeuta, quindi alla cura vera e propria. Però questi sono tutti studi e anche discorsi che si stanno facendo al momento, che sono un po' tutti da approfondire, non c'è ancora, diciamo, una strada maestra, seppure c'è uno studio in particolare che ha evidenziato delle possibilità. È importante dal punto di vista di chatbot questo anche, è l'ascolto, ovvero è un luogo di ascolto. Noi ci troviamo ad ascoltare e sentire e siamo liberi di parlare perché sappiamo che non c'è un giudizio, a maggior ragione, c'è una macchina dall'altra parte. E infatti, fra gli effetti positivi che sono stati misurati in diversi studi è proprio l'accoglienza non giudicante, perché sappiamo che chiusa il chatbot, il paziente sa che non c'è un uomo, c'è una macchina, quindi è più libero di parlare, non ha il problema da porsi, quindi questo si crea un setting che magari lo vive in maniera più protetta, lo sente più protetto come tipo di setting. Qui c'è ancora un altro studio che appunto evidenzia come si potrebbe integrare l'intelligenza artificiale in psicoterapia. Fa un lavoro su 5 fasi, l'intelligenza artificiale osserva e suggerisce ma non interviene, supporta il terapeuta con feedback e analisi, collabora attivamente con lo psicologo nella seduta. Questo è lo studio che dicevo prima, in cui ci sono state delle ipotesi di utilizzo. Dialoga direttamente col paziente sotto supervisione umana, conduce in autonomia una forma di terapia automatizzata. Ora, questi studi sono davvero interessanti dal punto di vista tecnico, quelli della terapia totalmente umanizzata, cioè automatizzata. Vado avanti, salto queste slide così poi andiamo a un punto cruciale. Sono questo studio qua in particolare, che ha utilizzato, vi invito a provare chi utilizza chatbot come OpenAI, ChatGPT, Claude, DeepSeek, Gemini. Sono prompt, cioè scritti, che si possono utilizzare e vedere proprio come risponde. Sono stati fatti 2 studi, in particolare, con l'utilizzo di 2 tipologie di modello. Quello che viene chiamato, perdonate la miopia, ma devo spostarmi, SAG e SASG. sono due studi in cui sono stati istruiti dei modelli di intelligenza artificiale in due modi. L'intelligenza artificiale, questi grandi modelli si possono istruire con grandi mole di dati, quindi si fa quello che viene chiamato fine tuning, ovvero io ho una serie di informazioni, quindi di sedute, che sono scomposte in maniere tecniche, non vi voglio tediare con queste informazioni, e viene in qualche modo poi veicolata questa informazione all'interno di questo cervello che poi prende forma e quindi impara, tra virgolette, a utilizzare delle tecniche. Quindi ci sono delle tecniche di fine tuning nel primo esempio, nel metodo SAG, e poi viene utilizzato un prompt altro non è che una chat in cui io dico alle AI, tu sei uno psicoterapeuta cognitivo-comportamentale, segui queste 3-4 linee guida nell'approccio col paziente. Quando il paziente ti parla, segui il modello. E gli si dice il modello 1, 2, 3, e tu scrivi, e lui risponde, e segue questo modello. Serenamente proprio. Allora questo tipo di esercizio, diciamo così, è difficile, richiede tanto tempo sia per istruire i modelli, perché ci vuole una grande mole di dati, un grande lavoro tecnico da parte degli operatori per istruirli, e anche poi lo strumento diventa molto rigido, perché gli si dice proprio come rispondere A, B, C, D, non c'è libertà. Nell'altro tipo di modello invece, il SSAG, non viene istruito con quello che è il fine tuning, quindi io non gli do questa grande mole di dati, però vado a utilizzare un prompt che è un po' più largo, un po' più ampio. Vi faccio vedere proprio praticamente, questo è un prompt del primo modello in cui gli dico segui il punto 1, segui il punto 2, segui il punto 3, e poi lui memorizza questo testo che vedete in verde, e quando si inizia a chattare col dispositivo, lui segue, quando c'è il paziente che chatta col dispositivo, segue questi script, questi prompt, e va avanti. Mentre questo qui è il modello più aperto, diciamo così, in cui la domanda è molto più ampia, cioè viene lasciata al modello la possibilità di essere più largo, però utilizzando un modello particolare di risposta, dicendo ok, utilizza questo tipo di intervista, questa modalità di intervista, seguendo brevemente questo tipo di prompt. E questo è ancora molto... si può utilizzare con più facilità, se ne possono creare con più facilità, e sono entrambi funzionali, cioè i risultati finali sono questi rispetto all'utilizzo dei due studi su persone. La validazione del concetto di SAG con 43 partecipanti. I partecipanti hanno utilizzato, diciamo, il primo modello che vi ho spiegato, hanno interagito con diversi chatbot, hanno seguito regole, e questo è il primo studio. Il secondo studio è quello che un po' vi ho descritto, il SAG 2 con 21 partecipanti e così via. I risultati sono stati che il SAG primo supera tutti gli altri chatbot in empatia, coinvolgimento e aderenza, mentre l'altro ottiene risultati comparabili al primo, però richiede ovviamente meno lavoro per l'implementazione. Conclusioni e prospettive future sono quelle che vi ho riassunto all'inizio, nel senso che ci possono essere diversi utilizzi in diversi modi con determinati limiti. Uno studio, l'ultimo studio che cito è questo, è ILMI. Con questo ILMI è proprio un modello che esiste negli Stati Uniti, è stato utilizzato per un certo periodo. È stato creato un chatbot partendo da quello che è il modello di partenza di Llama, di Facebook, di Meta. È stato istruito, in questo caso col fine tuning, gli si è insegnato attraverso il passaggio di 1000 casi la terapia cognitivo-comportamentale, gli sono stati dati degli script e lui li ha imparati. E poi vado avanti veloce senza andare nel dettaglio degli altri modelli, sono stati confrontati, diciamo così, i risultati sia con persone che hanno interagito col chatbot istruito con il modello cognitivo-comportamentale, e si è notato che effettivamente le persone sono state meglio, cioè sono stati una serie di 4-5 parametri validati, poi ovviamente perché parliamo sempre di ricerca scientifica, in cui effettivamente emergeva che le persone stavano meglio. La stessa cosa è stata fatta anche come metodo di paragone, hanno fatto parlare fra di loro paziente, chatbot, 2 chatbot, cioè, anzi 3 chatbot, cioè come se fosse un paziente fatto da un'intelligenza artificiale e un'altra intelligenza artificiale che faceva il terapeuta. E anche in questo caso poi c'è stata una misurazione da parte umana, perché c'è stato l'uomo che ha misurato, per vedere quanto effettivamente avrebbe potuto essere efficace, e l'efficacia c'era anche in questo caso. Dunque, cosa dire? Io finisco qui, sono stato veramente breve e sintetico perché si potrebbe dire tantissimo e molto di più. Quello che mi spaventa a livello personale, seppure io lavori in un settore che si occupa di intelligenza artificiale, nel settore sanitario, a parte essere psicologo e tutto il resto che è stato detto, quello che mi spaventa è lasciare in mano a queste entità, a questi oggetti, non so neanche come chiamarli, la scelta, l'interazione con il paziente, cosa che dal mio punto di vista non sarebbe da fare, salvo che appunto non sia un primo scalino per poter avvicinare un paziente e intervenire dopo di persona.
Thank you very much.
Mi sono arrogato il diritto di intervenire subito, scusami. No, dai, te sentivo proprio tu, siamo in troppo a intervenire. È chiaro che diciamo, è un po' sconcertante la cosa, però la mia domanda è molto tecnica. Questo tipo di lavoro è stato fatto solo unicamente con la terapia cognitivo-comportamentale?
Che io sappia è quella più utilizzata.
Quella più utilizzata, quindi
Quella
non
più
sai se ci sono ricerche con altre forme di terapia?
È stato impastato il primo modello negli anni 60, si chiamava Doctor, è stato fatto con il colloquio rogersiano, quindi non una vera e propria terapia, e poi c'è stato Eliza, che invece era sulla parte verbale, utilizzava l'analisi delle parole fatte dal paziente e in base all'analisi verbale rispondeva. Quella rogersiana c'è stata, altre terapie non ce ne sono. Io vi posso portare la mia esperienza perché pur non essendo terapeuta, ma ormai 30 anni che mi occupo di Jung, la psicologia analitica e anche l'ilmaniana, ho provato a dare l'identità, ho fatto identità, interpretami un sogno in chiave analitica junghiana, interpretami un sogno in chiave analitica ilmaniana. Resto scioccato, nel senso che effettivamente, più che la parola interpretare, cioè dammi dei feedback in maniera tale io possa pormi rispetto al paziente in un certo modo. E il resto è esterrefatto da quello che viene fuori. Alcuni concetti sono assolutamente pregnanti, ad esempio sui sogni, proprio lui parla, soprattutto nell'ambito del maniano, ti parla veramente di Cronos, di Ade, e te li mette... È una memoria, certo. Certo, certo. Sì, sì, certo.
Mi riferisco al gradimento per l'accoglienza non giudicante. È l'algoritmo o lo hanno addestrato all'epoca?
Ah, no, allora, no, è l'algoritmo che non so se poi lo traducono, che è paraculo, nel senso che non lo so come si possa tradurre, però è l'algoritmo che in qualche maniera sa, è l'algoritmo che risponde sempre sì ed è accondiscendente, perché sono modelli accondiscendenti. Bravo, esatto, giusto.
Un'altra cosa, una mia brevissima esperienza, perché sono molto lontano da queste cose, ogni tanto mi appare quando apro Google per controllare la posta elettronica un Copilot,
sì.
Copilot, ok. Vabbè, per gioco così ho scritto una cosa, non so nemmeno cosa, punto, poi ho aggiunto PS 9 volte 7. La risposta al PS è stata 63. Io invece mi riferivo al racconto di Isaac Asimov 9 volte 7 e non l'ha capito. Cioè, puoi pensare che magari anche esaminando quello che ho scritto grammaticalmente, sintatticamente e semanticamente corretto, lo saprò quando fa 9 volte 7? No.
No, il problema è il contesto. E il problema è il contesto, perché se non si dà il contesto, lui parte da quello più probabile, che è 9 volte 7, 7 per 9, 63.
Brevissimo, poi vi
Esatto.
Dico solo questo.
Sì.
La critica maggiore che si fa al discorso dell'intelligenza artificiale, l'intelligenza artificiale gioca benissimo a scacchi e batte tutti, ma mentre batte tutti quanti a scacchi non sa che sta giocando a scacchi. Questo è un punto fondamentale.
Non ha coscienza di sé.
Sì, a me queste cose intrigano invece. Mentre parlava, pensavo che può servire tutto questo in psicoterapia. Io lo uso da qualche mese per altre cose. La filosofia, per ricercare delle cose.
È fantastico.
Mi è utilissimo. Ma stavo pensando, è di ricerca, sì. Stavo pensando, lavorare con questo strumento per avere uno stimolo, da non pretendere uno stimolo umano o di sintonia, ma uno stimolo a fare autoformazione per lo psicoterapeuta. Io penso che lo psicoterapeuta che voglia lavorare con se stesso, che si pone delle domande, che leggendo un libro, quindi anche lì è una cosa oggettiva, è portato a porsi delle domande su quello che legge, è una stimolazione, secondo me, veramente pregnante. Io, per esempio, ho parlato negli interventi che ho fatto di Federico Faggin, ho letto i suoi 3 libri.
Anch'io, sì.
Va bene? Mi hanno stimolato tantissimo, li devo rileggere, li sto rileggendo, perché è avanti di 20 anni, secondo me. Va bene?
Sì.
Ho fatto delle domande a ChatGPT e mi ha dato degli stimoli filosofici, antropologici, scientifici che non mi sarei mai aspettato di farmi. Cioè, quando lavoro con me stesso mi ha dato un aiuto veramente efficace per capire alcune cose, per ampliare. Ora non lo posso usare per essere autostimolato in un'autoformazione. Gli faccio una domanda esistenziale per me e lui mi dice cos'è, è come se leggessi un libro, qualcosa che sta lì, ma mi dà una stimolazione che non mi danno le persone.
Certo.
Assolutamente. Nessuna collega mi avrebbe dato quelle risposte. Ecco, se le facevo a te che hai letto, non me l'avresti fatte, secondo me. Quello me l'ha fatte perché non ha coscienza, quello che vogliamo noi, però può essere usato come autoformazione dallo psicoterapeuta, non tanto fare la psicoterapia all'altro, al paziente, lì è più rischioso, ci sono tanti fattori,
Sono troppi.
tanti fattori, forse troppi, ma per il terapeuta che è già formato non può essere veramente, mi stavo chiedendo e ti chiedo, uno strumento validissimo di formazione che non avevamo ancora e in parte non abbiamo? Questa è la mia domanda.
Allora, sicuramente sì, perché sempre all'interno degli studi, sono andato veloce per motivi di tempo, all'interno degli studi che citavo, proprio si diceva anche dell'utilizzo dei chatbot per l'insegnamento e la formazione agli psicoterapeuti. E questo e anche al docente, per rispondere alla prima domanda delle 2 domande, diciamo così, è assolutamente utile perché comunque c'è competenza dall'altra parte e quindi ti offre un pensiero laterale che magari un altro non avrebbe trovato. Ma questo pensiero laterale da cosa nasce? Nasce dall'appaiamento matematico di funzioni stocastiche che mette assieme le parole per vicinanza semantica e quindi per cosine similarity, si dice in gergo, per similarità del coseno sulle parole, e quindi va a costruire tutto un mondo. E siccome parole lui ne ha tante, concetti ne ha tantissimi, ne ha sicuramente più di una persona media come me che ha allargato e espande, quindi è utilissimo da quel punto di vista, sì.
Quando usiamo i libri non facciamo cose
Uguale.
molto più limitate.
Sì.
Quando uno già ha una competenza, per ampliare le proprie competenze.
Certo,
quello è uno strumento validissimo per fare questo. Chi ha già competenza,
bravo.
Chi non si aspetta dall'altro la terapia o l'informazione, ma un aiuto a autoformarsi. Questa è la...
E sono d'accordo, è quello che dico anch'io. Ad esempio sui modelli ChatGPT soprattutto, che lo permette di fare in modo facile, si possono caricare anche NPDF, 5, 6, 7 PDF di un determinato studioso o anche diversi, e tu poi interroghi il modello ponendogli le domande e digli: io ho questa domanda esistenziale, stando a quello che alla tua ontologia che ti ho caricato, perché quelle diventano ontologie del sistema, rispondimi e fammi pensare. E allora lui analizza anche i libri che tu gli hai messo dentro e ti risponde in funzione dei libri. Si chiama RAG, questo tipo in termine tecnico.
Adesso dicevo, io preferisco fare la domanda a ChatGPT per la mia formazione piuttosto che a Gianfranco Buffardi.
Are there more questions for Mr. Quagliarella? Well, this session of presentation is over, but I think it's time to introduce again the 3 fathers of psychoexistential therapy, the Triple B, Buffardi, Boscaino, Brancaleone.
BBB. Thanks. I believe that all of us are very tired. So only two words for say goodbye and then, for the new meeting that I hope that will be very very fast. Lascio la parola al professore Brancaleone.
Come chiusura ringrazio tutti voi come partecipanti e veramente dal profondo ringrazio Gianfranco Buffardi e Fernando Boscaino, che si sono veramente prodigati e mi hanno dato un'esperienza ai miei 75 anni che non avevo mai avuto. Non me lo sarei mai aspettato da loro, ma mi fa molto piacere. Ci dobbiamo sorprendere fino alla fine. Sapersi meravigliare è il fondamento della filosofia, ci ha detto sia Socrate, sia Platone, sia Aristotele. La meraviglia è il fondamento, no? Dell'esistenza tipicamente umana. Quindi io sono meravigliato e quindi filosoficamente e psicoterapeuticamente contento.
Adesso lo dico in italiano perché non so come tradurla, quindi datemi una mano per favore, voi traduttrici, brevissimo, ok? Qualcuno degli italiani si ricorderà, no, forse voi che state in sala no, che esisteva lo Zecchino d'Oro, no? Che era una specie di Sanremo dei bambini una volta, con Mago Zurlì. È una famosa canzone, era una canzone che parlava di 3 cowboy che erano il lungo, il corto e il pacioccone. Ecco, questa è la nostra triade.
Noi abbiamo fatto finta di essere psicoterapeuti e filosofi. Noi in fondo siamo dei ciarlatani.
Allora, velocemente, io ho promesso ai ragazzi del service che dicevo 3 parole, ne ho già dette 5, ho promesso che voi ne ricevate 7, ne avete dette 27, quindi basta così. Grazie a tutti per esserci stati.
I hope that we will meet you in Denver in 2000-2006. Bye. Thanks all.